Hey guys, thanks for joining me today. I'm your host, Dr. Amit Gosalia, and today I'm sitting down and talking with an expert in the wonderful field of HR and staffing, the founder of Staffing Proxy, Shadi Chakoutahi. Hey, thanks for joining us today, guys. Today I'm actually joined by a very, very cool person, and I think you guys are going to enjoy her because one of my favorite things to do as a leader and a business owner is staffing. I love it when team members just leave and then I got to go through the process of searching and hire. You guys with me here? No? No? Am I the only one? I'm actually not the only one either. It's actually one of the pitfalls of what my limitations are in what I love to do in the private practice and the business is the staffing part of it. So please help me welcome the founder of Staffing Proxy, Shadi. Shadi, can you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. This is super exciting for me. I am the founder of Staffing Proxy. We are a recruiting and HR agency dedicated only in hearing healthcare industry. So that is all we do. We work with people like yourself, and our goal is to find talent for amazing employers out there and help them with retaining and keeping those employees and help the employers becoming employer of choice. You will hear us talking about employer of choice a lot, and that is what we do.
So how did you find the hearing care industry out of all the industries of the world? How did you find
Yeah,
hearing
that's
care?
actually that's a really good question. My background is crazy. So my bachelor's is actually an electrical engineer. So
Okay.
that's a different story. And then throughout the years, your career, or at least my career, did not go the path that I had wanted to, or had studied and I went to school for. So I got my
Mhm.
MBA, and I had always worked with business owners, people who were responsible and in charge of their own business.
Right.
And I was in telecommunication for 10 plus years. And a
Mhm.
good friend of mine was actually the general counsel for Amplifon. And throughout the years, I kept meeting individuals that were named audiologists or hearing instrument specialists. And I was like, wait, what is it that you guys do? You do what? And so, one conversation led to another thing, and I made the connection with those individuals. And, it's really interesting because that's actually the foundation of how I started my business. It was because there have been times in my career that I would wake up in the morning and I would just hit the snooze. And
Right.
even though I had a great paying job, I just was not happy with the employer and the
Yep.
environment and the culture that I was working at. And I was really open to have conversations with recruiters or individuals around me. And I would find myself every year at about the same time, start looking for a new job. So I knew that there was something wrong. And I would keep looking for something else. And when I got into the hearing healthcare industry, I realized also that one of the big gaps in the industry was that there wasn't a dedicated resource or a place that
Mhm.
providers and business owners could go to and not only find the talent, but also help them retaining that talent. Because from our point of view, finding a talent is a complete different situation. And it's actually the symptom to the problem. When you keep losing employees, it's the
Yep.
symptom. You need to figure out what is going on. So having a solution and having someone that works with you to help you retaining those employees and becoming that employer of choice that we keep talking about, that's what I really wanted to do. So, and here we are years later and with Staffing Proxy.
Yeah, it's actually very interesting. I follow a podcast called Entree Leadership, which is part of the Dave Ramsey Network. And just the other day, I was listening to an interview with Seth Godin, and he actually talked about almost the exact same thing you talked about. with staff members and being that employer of choice. And even over the years, I've had my wife and I own private practices up in the Pacific Northwest, and we had issues with staff often. And we were always trying to find out, what is the issue? Why are we having these difficulties with these these staff members? So what in your opinion, what are some of those issues that we run into with staff, and why do we have trouble with HR?
Yeah, gosh, that's a really good question. So let me take a couple of steps back before I answer
Please.
your question.
Yes. Yes.
So typically, when someone comes to us and says, "Hey, I want to hire someone," I know a lot of recruiters and a lot of agencies will just say, "Yeah, absolutely, let's go ahead and post that job." We don't do that. We start having conversations with our clients, trying to understand why you have this position open. If it's an incremental position, great. That's I'm so glad that your business is growing. But unfortunately, that's typically not the case. It's a situation that the employee has left or the employee is looking to leave. So,
Right.
and we realize that it's because either the employer does not have the support within the organization to have answer to the employees' questions, the HR questions, because
Mhm.
small employers, they don't have a dedicated HR source,
Right.
or the biggest thing is there's no path to success, there's no performance reviews. And so with that, we have, sorry, let me go back, or they try to keep the employees happy with compensations. So just keep incentivizing the employees with commissions and things like that. And those
Right.
things will keep the employees happy for just a short period. But
Yep.
then you have a recruiter like me that reaches out to your employees, unfortunately, and I will introduce them to a true employer of choice, and immediately they will say yes. With that, we have developed this grading system that helps you go from 1, 2, or whatever you may be, to 5, which is a perfect employer of choice. And those
Right.
questions are not meant to really upset you, but it just helps you understanding where you are and create a path to get there. It's not easy to get there, but once you get there, you will have a culture of employees that will perform, and they will really commit themselves to your success as an organization. And you will always have a bench of people that want to work for you. So you will have every
Yeah.
recent grad that has heard about your business and they line up to come and work for you. Plus, the patients will know about your business, the customers will. So the ripple effect of being an employer of choice is immense.
Yeah. And I think one of the funniest jokes that I sometimes make is that communication, and it doesn't have to be top down or bottom up, because I don't want to say that the employer is on the top and the employees are on the bottom. The reality is that communication is so important, and a lot of us have master's degrees in communication disorders, and we definitely show it when we're not communicating with our teams appropriately. And in the hearing care space, we're always trying to keep our boats moving in the same direction, which is hopefully forward, right? And even when there's storms, we weather the storms. We're trying to keep the boats away from the storms, but sometimes those storms occur. Sometimes the captain of the ship needs help, right? It's we don't know all the answers. We try very hard to motivate and like you said, incentivize, but that incentive could only be temporary if the staff member or the team member is not invested in the practice, right? Meaning emotionally invested as well.
Correct.
What does a recruiter actually bring to the table in this situation?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And the timing of your question is perfect because I pulled a bunch of data and stats a couple days ago for last year. So almost everyone that we talk to, they're like, well, I've been posting jobs myself,
Yeah.
and why should I work with you? Well, that's true. You can post a job yourself, but there are a couple of things. Number one, in order to hire and find a quality individual, and the first stats that I'm mentioning are not specifically for the hearing healthcare industry. So you need to dedicate at least 3 hours a day to source and find candidates. So
Wow.
that's a part-time job on top of the real full-time job by itself. Then over 42% of candidates actually lie on their resumes. So that's sad, but that's true. So now lying could include, I worked until June of 2018 in a place where I actually, left in January. Or it could be that I grew revenue by 78%, whereas the business actually had a decline in revenue. It could be a wide range of stuff.
Sure.
And then 50% of individuals that apply for a job don't even qualify. And then a job description by itself, candidates only spend on average 76 seconds reading a job description. So that means that unless you have a perfect job description, if you write it too long or too short, you're going to miss their attention. So that's not for hearing healthcare. But then let's talk about our industry. This is just absolutely crazy. When you post a job on a free job board, so Indeed, LinkedIn, just, you post, you get free job postings on those. On average, and these data that I'm giving you, it's from our own internal client and our internal tracking. On average, you get only 1.27 candidates applying for a job.
Wow.
That's it.
Wow. That's very low.
That's extremely low.
Yeah.
Now, when you work with us, the number is still very low because there aren't enough individuals in the industry to apply for a job. But that number, when you include sponsored jobs, so it means that we have access to LinkedIn recruiter seat and access to all the sponsored jobs that as a recruiter we get to we get access to, in addition to passive candidates. So these are people that we approach, your employees, or these are individuals that we have worked with in the past and they're already in our pipeline. When you combine those two, the number goes to 15.4 individuals per job. So the chances of finding someone that actually meets your culture and your company's vision significantly increases.
Right.
That's the difference.
Big difference.
Yeah.
I mean, the numbers alone it's significant.
Absolutely. So, and then that means that, well, from where we stand, recruiting is all about accuracy and speed and doing it right the first time. So when you have a quality candidate in front of you, you need to make that decision right at that moment and be effective and efficient. Otherwise, someone else is going to hire that individual. And so if there's only 1.2 candidates, there's no way you can make that decision right. And again, I'm only speaking from about our organization. So the way we work is we don't charge you anything upfront. That's how confident we are about the way we work with you. And we will, before we start, as I mentioned, we want to make sure we understand what it is that you are going to what it is that's going to make you successful, what it is that's going to represent your culture, you as an employer, and create that job description that's 76 seconds so that a candidate can have a understanding of who they're going to work for. Talking about that hitting the snooze button in the morning. We want to make sure the candidate doesn't go through that in a few years. So we'll do all of that. And at the same time, we have all of these assessment tools, aptitude, skills, emotional intelligence. There's a series of those based on what it is that you're looking for. We'll take those 15.4 candidates through all of that to find the candidate that is absolutely right for your organization. And then we do have a satisfaction guarantee. So if the person happens to not work, we'll find someone else.
That's amazing. I'm actually an Enneagram 8. I don't know if you know what that is, but that's just what that's what I've been told is my Enneagram. And actually,
Okay.
I'm guilty. I used to, every time I'd post a job from patient care coordinator to
Mhm.
whatever position, I'm one of those where I'd use social media, I'd use Craigslist, other websites like I think you mentioned Indeed as well. But the reality is, you're right. The sample size, it could be small, which I can't make a very smart decision on a small sample size. And sometimes it's the opposite. It's so big that I can't go through like, 100 resumes. I'm like, wait a second, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
So having somebody like, staffing Proxy involved really lightens the load for me as a practice owner, as a leader in the profession, where I can spend more time doing the qualitative stuff in the practice to help grow the business.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And so when we talk about those positions that you're looking for, what positions do you guys help with?
Mhm.
Is it front office, back office, providers?
Great question. So anything in hearing healthcare, I mean, we hire from accountants within
Hmm.
hearing healthcare to front office. We have a client that is hiring medical assistants in the industry. So anything within the hearing healthcare industry. So because at the end of the day, they all provide support to you as the business owner, as the
Right.
provider. That is our goal, to make sure we're providing support to you so you can get back to taking care of your patients and grow your business. And these individuals are going to meet that need.
So somebody who is out there, let's say a recent graduate
Mhm.
from an AUD program, and they're looking for a job in, Los Angeles, okay, which is where I'm at. In Los Angeles, there's numerous practices looking around. So they could contact Staffing Proxy and you guys can help them find a position.
Absolutely. So that's a really good question. So for recent grads, we have a program. We start connecting with students at around like year 2, towards the end of the second year.
Hmm.
We have a funneling system that we stay connected with them and move them through just to understand what it is that they're looking for, where they're able to move, relocate to. So when they are towards the end of the externship the last year, they are ready. So they're not at that point looking for a position. And we have a client ready and lined up to connect them to. But yes.
That's fantastic. I'm very in tune with students in the profession. I do a lot of work with the Student Academy of Audiology and local AUD programs. And I think that's one of the biggest questions we get asked is, hey, when I graduate, how do I know where I'm going to go work? And it's like, well, hopefully you've already found that out before you graduate. But yes, this would be a great resource for them. And I like that idea of that program. I think it would be, I'd love to connect later on what we can
Yeah.
do with other student organizations to see what you can provide them to really help strengthen their abilities so that when they do get out, they have the right context and tools that they need.
Absolutely. That would be
Yeah,
great. And at the end of the day, it's all about, and it's in our tagline, it's all about making the connection.
right.
It's that's how that's how I've always found my jobs. And that's how I think most people find their jobs. It's all
Yeah.
about um connecting with each other. So
Yeah, and that doesn't just go in the employer employee
mhm.
position. I mean, we talk about it with our patients, and when I'm teaching students on how we're supposed to approach our patients, I always talk about making a connection with the patient, whether it's an emotional connection or whatever. You just have to make that kind of connection, and sometimes it happens within the first 30 seconds of meeting that new patient, and trying to make that connection so that the long-term relationship is a positive one, which I can, just easily relate back to what you're saying as well with the employer employee.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. So I wish I knew where you were, that you were around 6 years ago, because I could have really used you back then, um, with some team members and even those that joined us and then left us, and then of course we had to go into legal, which is not always fun and costly. Uh, but we talk about the actual cost of team members leaving and joining. What is, like, besides the emotional cost, because I know when staff leave or team members leave, it's draining, and then just the energy what is the actual cost of
Yeah.
replacing team members?
So number one, we always um advise, if there's any way to retain an employee, we suggest that you work and find a way to retain an employee, unless it's, a crazy situation. If it's a performance situation, the first question that we ask is, does the employee even know what's expected from them? Have you had performance reviews? So that's the first question. But because the cost is way more than retaining an employee. So when it comes to the actual cost, because it also affects and impacts the patients and all the employees around, it's a percentage of the salary. That's how it's looked at. And the higher the level of the employee and their involvement in the organization, of course, that percentage goes high. So there are three percentages that we look at. The entry, mid, and high. For the entry, we look at it as about 15% of the salary. And the entry position, we look at like a PCC, and therefore that's what we look at. Even like a audiology techs, sometimes I would say they're about 20%.
Okay.
And then for an audiologist, is at 45% of their salary. And then if you have like a audiology director, if you have an actually partner or something, you're looking at about 100% of their salary. So an audiology average salary, and this is just a salary, not the total comp with commission, anything. The average as of last quarter for US, if you base it on that, you're looking at somewhere around $35,000 impact. So when you lose an audiologist in a practice, regardless of how long you're leaving that position open, you're looking at $35,000 impact.
Yep.
So,
no, that's a significant number, right? I mean, I would want to keep that employee happy and retain them as long as possible, so I don't have to be forced to look at a number like that. And that's again, it's not just the emotional, it's not just the financial, it's everything. I mean, and sometimes that actually permeates to other staff members. If somebody's leaving, it's almost like I hate to use virus in this pandemic time, but it's almost like a virus that if somebody's leaving, sometimes the next person leaves, and it just it snowballs, and it's terrible.
Or the patients that end up leaving your business.
Yeah, patients will recognize that too, and they say, hey, I wanted to see Dr. So-and-so, and they're not here anymore. It becomes really tough. So you're absolutely correct. And we talked earlier, and you mentioned that you were going to offer a special deal, and we really appreciate. Everyone loves deals. Who doesn't like deals, right? So you were generous enough to do this, and we appreciate it. So anybody who contacts you at Staffing Proxy will receive a 15% discount on human capital management system, which is an HR and organizational development. Can you kind of talk on that, please?
Yeah. So, and again, it goes all back to being an employer of choice. So what our human capital management system is, when you're a small employer and you really don't have that HR resource, and someone comes to you and says, you know what, whatever, with any legal issues, what do you typically do? I don't know, you Google it. Or some people may have access to some kind of HR support through their payroll system, but it's not an actual resource that has content, materials, anything and everything. What this system has, and we give you access to, it is a full platform with all contents related to your state, to any states that you want to pick and choose. And these are accessible to you. And in addition to that, when we talk about employee development and employee growth, one of the things we keep talking about is the performance reviews. Yet no one does performance reviews because they're just hard. You have to write things, you have to document things. But this is automated platform. For anyone that has worked in a larger corporation, they're familiar with the cloud system platform. This is exactly the same thing. You pick and choose different performance review segments, and everything is there. You talk about HR policies, everything is available. HIPAA policies, PHI policies, everyone is updated. Set all of those aside. Now, I'm going to ask you, when was the last time you updated your employee manual at your practice?
We just did it last year, so
Okay.
I'm not the good one to ask. So.
Well, that's very good. Nice. So you have access to employee manual, and you can, on a monthly or quarterly basis, if there are any updates relevant to your state, you get a notice, you add the new content. So all of those are available to you. And in addition to that, you have access to complete LMS, learning management system, with over 120 or so learning material. HIPAA is one of them. And so when you have a new employee join your organization, you want to create a nice onboarding process. So instead of the new employee sitting in the back room playing Tetris, they can actually go through the onboarding process and take new learning management system, learning management programs. So there are tons of materials, tons of contents available. And if that's not even enough, there's a actual HR person you can call or email to ask any questions you have.
A real life person.
Yeah.
Real life person. I love it. We just did our employee reviews just 2 weeks ago. So we do it every year, right?
Oh my
in January.
gosh,
we're a little late. We include we have them do a self-evaluation as well as our evaluation. And so my partner and I, we will go through and we have a meeting set aside where we do that. Perfect. It's no fun. She hates doing it. And it's not that I don't like doing it, but I think I'm a little bit more firm with the staff than she is. And so it gets a little kind of loosey-goosey sometimes. So something like what you've talked about, having the resources of a large organization in the small practices that we're in is amazing. So really, really appreciate you taking the time today to be here and sharing this with us. I'm going to put the link down below on where you can learn more about staffing Proxy. And Shadi Chakoutahi, thank you so much. I wanted to make sure I said your last name. I didn't say it earlier, but she said you can call her Shadi C. Thank you so much again. We look forward to working with you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it as well. Thank you.
Okay.